Erica, Steven, and myself were elected to kind of be POCs on behalf of our group. So we'll
Okay.
likely be reaching out, probably not all together going forward, but just so you're aware, it'll be
Okay.
one of us three most likely.
No problem.
Okay. And Erica, let me know when you're ready, if you got it
I
going.
think I think so. Did it pop
I
up
see it
showing that
I
it's
recorded.
saw it.
Yeah, I
okay?
think we're
It's
good.
like it shows that it is. Okay, just making sure.
All right. So, just starting off, the first question is obviously expectations, particularly around deliverables. In our first session, I think we had heard you say you're not looking for a recommendation to launch a specific product, but
Yep.
rather a well-researched framework that you can take to your leadership team so you can have a
Yep.
serious strategic conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, would it be fair to say you're not? We can use specific examples as maybe a case study, but what you're really looking for is like a research-backed, data-driven. These are opportunities for us, and then give me a little bit of
Exactly.
bandwidth. Okay.
Yeah, I don't need anything shiny and flashy. I'm not looking to pull the trigger on anything that I would implement at this time. It's more about equipping me to be able to go to our leadership team and say, okay, here's what I know about um, these types of programs in our space. Here are the things we should take into account if we are going to think about something like this. Um, in our market in particular, here are some of the other people in this space. Here's what they're doing, or, there's no one else in this space. Um, and then maybe some information on, where does workforce preparation and training and all that intersect with any sort of social enterprise endeavor? Or maybe you find that those two worlds are totally different and they can exist in parallel universes, but I want just like as far as the actual deliverable, I would say it's really just like an executive summary.
I think that's what we about got. We were getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but when we
Okay.
went back and listened, that's about what we got. So, again, setting expectations. So, as we progress through this, how would you like to stay updated on our progress?
Oh, emails work just fine for me. I would love centralized communication. It doesn't mean it needs to be just one person, but I want the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. So let's say that like Stephen is communicating something to me about a meeting we need next week. But then I hear from Erica that we really need a different meeting this week on something else. Like, as long as you guys are communicating, and I don't care if I get communications from different people, but I just want to make sure that we don't have like multiple work streams that aren't collaborating with each other. I do great. I'm a highly responsive person. I generally prefer to not get meaty requests through texting because if I'm in the middle of something and then I forget to get back to you. So, like, if you need something from me, the best way to reach out to me is through email, which I know for your generation might be somewhat antiquated, but that's how I work.
No, it sounds great. And is there any sort of interval you're looking for, or is weekly good? Something, or when we hit major
No, I would
statuses?
say I'm going to assume that things are humming along and you don't need anything from me if I hear nothing.
Okay.
So I don't need updates in a particular cadence for my sake. I'm just here to be available for you for your sake. So, if you guys were on my team at work, we'd probably have a weekly stand up or something. But if there's nothing new to share, I don't want to meet just for the sake of meeting. That's not a good use of anyone's time.
Okay. Perfect. All right. So I think as far as expectations go, those were the only two big ones. So the
Okay.
next set are core problem framing.
Okay.
So based on the first session again, we really took away two core problems to identify. the mission aligned revenue opportunities through social enterprising. And then the
Uh-huh.
second one, improving long term housing stability for residents transitioning out of shelters. Are those two like the primary two? The first one being more significant, but then two that you think could be related in some fashion.
Exactly. Like I wanted you to know about both of them as you explore this because um, if you were to see that there's an opportunity in one of those areas, it's probably a little more exciting knowing that one of them is a problem for us to solve. I don't need them to be tied together. I don't need any particular research around the sustainable housing issue. I just wanted you to know that is an issue. And so if one of the opportunities that you all consider, not as a proposal, but just recognizing that, okay, they also have this secondary problem over here, might we tie these things together? Is there some synergy? But I'm not looking to you all to solve both those problems. If you all decide, like, there's this little subgroup over here that's really interested in the issues with what happens when we move some of our shelter residents into permanent housing and how to make that more sustainable, and they want to do their own little summary on that topic, I'm open-minded about it.
Okay. That's kind of where we were at. So, and one more clarifying question. Uh, the urgency for this is the growing service demand, right? So they looking for revenue to kind of create sustainability in the future,
Yeah,
especially with unpredictable government funding.
yeah,
And yep, okay. Just want to make sure that was why it's such a focus, which I think you covered pretty well the
yeah.
first session.
Okay.
So now kind of getting into the questions from the group. So one of them is, if nothing changed over the next year, what would concern you the most?
That's a great question. What would concern me the most is that that we cannot effectively support our operations uh, if all things stay the same and we don't, make a cut with a ministry or something. Supporting those operations, if the government funding issues continue the way they do and fundraising doesn't increase significantly, I just don't like the idea of having to access other financial resources to support operations.
So kind of switching gears, going into a strategic question line.
Uh-huh.
One of the questions is, how does this connect to your broader mission or strategic priorities? But if I can assume from our first session, any revenue generating ideas need to directly serve or employ your participants in some way. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not about revenue for its own sake, I believe you said. So,
Yeah.
and then follow up to that is like, is this being driven by more internal goals, funding dynamics, or any external requirements such as policy or donor expectations?
That's a really good question too. I would not say it's driven by anything from the outside. This is purely my own curiosity. Like, what missed opportunities are there? Where is there low-hanging fruit? Um, I'll give you another example. One thing I've been thinking about is so one of our ministries is called St. Raphael Counseling. We have behavioral health therapists that I mentioned. They go into Catholic schools. There's basically two arms of that ministry. One arm provides school counselors in the Catholic schools in town. The other arm is just a clinical practice that serves anyone who's looking for a therapist. We have like a bench of therapists that um, are all credentialed in a way that they can serve people out of state via Zoom, et cetera. So if we broadened that, because it really is the largest Catholic clinical entity for therapy, if we just highly marketed that and broadened that to have a broader reach beyond Colorado, that could be sort of our social enterprise where we're bringing in a lot more revenue and just growing that quite a bit. Um, so I think there's just things like that that we're just not doing because we're so busy with the day to day. But if we saw like, oh, there's really an opportunity here to do that, it might get the ears perked up of my colleagues.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so the next line of questioning is around revenue and social enterprise. So
Hmm.
I think one of the questions is, where does your funding feel most constrained? I think when you discussed it the first time, it was the grant side, the government grant side of it, just because it's a little unpredictable. Is that
Yes.
accurate? Okay.
Yeah. It is definitely accurate, and also just that the needs are growing. So, like, the number of people who are coming to like our Little Flower Assistance Center to get clothes, or the people coming to our diaper drives, like those numbers are growing. And so I would say it's the, things are less stable in terms of our government grants, but the needs are growing as just the financial climate out in the community has become a little more dire.
So, next question is, how flexible is your funding? Do you feel like you have enough unrestricted resources, or do the grants kind of get pushed into certain
No.
restrictions? Okay.
Well, what we're finding is grants that we could generally count on year after year are becoming a lot less predictable. So, um, we can't necessarily plan that a program funded by a grant today is going to be funded by that grant next year. So it's the lack of predictability that is a problem. Um, but it doesn't mean we can't offset grants with private fundraising. We can always do that, but what's happening with our fundraising is most of our fundraising, first of all, we have very high attrition, mainly because most of our fundraiser or our funders are of an older generation, and we're not bringing new people into the pipeline. And so our fundraising team is working on that. So it's sort of like a perfect storm where we're seeing fewer new funders that on the private side, and then lack of predictability with government grants. Now, there are grants out there, and we're getting um, some, we're seeing some activity with grants because of the climate. So, like a private family grant versus a government grant, because things are so difficult with government funding and stuff right now, more family grants are responding to that. So it's just that the way we operate our business and some of the programs that we have that were funded in a particular way, or maybe they were started because of a grant, uh, that's what's sort of all over the board. So we are being creative and we're figuring out ways to not pull the plug on a program because of that. But that's not very sustainable over the long haul.
Sam, before you move on, I have another question for. So, say, like with your example previously, you increase funding there. How does that funding move from that program to another program? Like, if it's raised in that program, does it have to stay in that specific program? Or are you just kind of not money laundering, but you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, moving it to the other
Robbing from Peter
bucket?
to pay Paul. Yeah. No,
Yes.
it totally depends by the grant. You know, most grants are very specific. And then, you know, if we're getting let's say we're raising funds for
I'm not
something.
talking about the grants, saying the stuff you guys are earning directly.
Oh,
Because
got it. Okay, so
I
like,
understand the grant money has to stay there. You can't move that. But like when you go out and you're raising money directly in that
yeah.
function.
Okay,
Does that
so a
make
couple
sense?
different things. So when we raise money, we do raise money for our general fund. We
Okay.
also raise money for specific ministries. So for example, we have like, events that we hold, black tie events, auctions, that sort of thing. Some of those are for very specific ministries. That money stays in that ministry. Then we have revenue that comes in from a couple different programs. For example, aside from fundraising revenue, our housing department, our the people who are living in those housing units are paying rent. It's often subsidized, but that rent is revenue, and that stays with the housing program. So yeah, when it is specific to a program, it stays in that program.
Any other follow up on the Erica or Stephen? Right. So next question is: have you explored any earned revenue or social enterprise ideas before, or just like
Not
the first?
seriously.
Okay.
Not seriously. I mean, the we know it's an opportunity. We know people are out there doing this and that we're not. Um, but we just haven't made it a strategic priority. So it's not like we've decided thoughtfully we shouldn't do it. Nothing like that.
Gotcha. All right. So are there any assets or capabilities you feel are being underutilized today that might play a role in this opportunity?
Um, I think I'd want to put a little more thought into answering that, like off the cuff. I don't know if I think that something is being underutilized, but I do think there's a couple programs we have that could either grow, serve a broader audience, like that we could leverage more. So they may be being utilized very effectively in the community, but by investing a little more in them, growing them in a particular way to have a broader reach, that could be an opportunity. But I don't know that I think there's any particular ministry being underutilized. It's almost the opposite across the board.
So, how does your leadership think about generating revenue? Do they see more as like an opportunity or a risk, or they just you're going to be coming to them completely?
Well, it's a very good question. These are all really good questions, you guys. Um, I think it varies by the person that you ask. I think different people interpret our mission differently. And so you have some in leadership they come from the private sector, they have strong business background, um, they are queasy like me when it comes to the prospect of not being able to fund our operations just through our normal, but operate our budget every year. And then there are some who see our work more ministerial and that it shouldn't really be about revenue. They have a hard time understanding that revenue isn't about profit. Revenue is about fueling the mission. Um, so I would say there are varying paradigms within leadership, but the common denominator is to be as effective as we can. And so I think once it's shown to someone who might be either indifferent or even opposed to the idea of this, once they could see the benefit that, like, okay, this money would go right back into the mission and it would help fund X, Y, and Z. And what's more, we could get it to a point of stability where we can bank on X amount of dollars every year, where we see like a trajectory that's consistent year over year. So I'm not concerned that the lack of the lack of consistency among our leaders in terms of how they think about that. I'm not concerned about that. I just think it's because they haven't really been exposed up front to the benefits of something like this. I would say that Catholic Charities USA, which we are all Catholic Charities are members of, um, are working really hard to promote the concept of something like this to be considered seriously by the different agencies, because the agencies that do have a social enterprise program, they're seeing just wild success. And so they too see it as something that could be leveraged across the different chapters. I say chapters, but that's not really what we are. We're independent of them, but we're a member of Catholic Charities USA.
Okay. So if you had additional flexible funding, where would it make the biggest difference right away?
That would be such a fun conversation around our senior leadership table, because everyone would say their own ministry, which really is a good thing, because there's so much love and care and passion for each individual ministry that everyone could make a case on what could be done with it. I would say we have capital improvements that we need to make. That those are the first thing to go, you know. But I'm not so worried about that, because that we can access financial resources that we have saved for things like that. It's more how are we going to continue to fund, let's say, this is hypothetical, 15 therapists doing clinical work who aren't necessarily billing enough hours to cover that ministry, or early childhood education programs that can't afford new books for the students. Like, I would say that whatever you put together, I would make it agnostic to where the need is, because any revenue that comes in for a particular ministry, like let's say you guys become convicted that, Gina, there's really not good opportunity in what you're doing to consider social enterprise anywhere other than in your food service and the team that's making the meals for people. Um, but let's say that that's really well funded. That's still really good information. So I wouldn't get caught up in worrying about where is the need greatest, because sometimes, if a grant goes away in one area and we have enough private funding to support it, um, then we actually may want to move the needs somewhere else. If, am I making any sense? Like, I think,
Yeah, I'm tracking.
okay,
Okay, yeah, this next set of questions, this kind of goes back to this housing stability subject. So
okay.
um, it's kind of like the subset. Uh, so when a transition works really well, what tends to make the difference?
That I don't know, because
Okay.
I'm not experienced enough with the um there's a lot of intricacies within social work, particularly within, that particular issue of people who are dealing with homelessness. I can absolutely connect you with the head of our shelter team that can provide some feedback on that. But it would be pure conjecture on my part. I could speculate on it, but I'm sure there is actual data that is available for you. And, if you want, like, to streamline, getting time with that person would probably be more laborious than me just shooting a couple questions his way and having him give some feedback on it, if you'd like. to just streamline it. You can just shoot me whatever questions you'd want to ask about that. He'd probably be able to provide you with a couple of resources. Um, but my guess is that it's very individual and there's, all sorts of factors like um, mental health issues, trauma, all sorts of things that have a bearing on that. It's possible he could share like what is the general model and framework we try to follow when we're walking through that issue with someone. That might be helpful to know. What I'm not wanting you guys to worry about or spend time on is solving the problem of how do we um how do we resolve the challenge that someone who's had life in a shelter when they move to permanent housing, what are the things we need to do to make them successful there? That is not something for you guys to take on. It's it would be something more like, okay, if we know that having work experience helps those people succeed in permanent housing, where are some areas that Catholic Charities should explore providing work experience? What associations or agencies are out there that they could partner with? Um, how should they be thinking about uh, how to best prepare one of their participants who moves into permanent or supportive housing? Like, what are the things they should bear in mind to help that person be successful? So I would say look to our team to provide you with what those things are versus you guys trying to figure out what those things are.
Fair enough. And I think there's quite a few follow-up questions that would probably be best served to be sent to your point of contact. So
Okay.
we might follow up
That
on
was
that then. Yeah.
that was my thought too, is a whole bunch of
Okay.
these next questions should probably just get emailed right to Gina to
Yeah. We'll
see
we'll
what we
screen
can
through them
get.
and okay. Yeah, and then we only really have one left, Gina.
Okay.
If you were to launch something new, what constraints would concern you the most?
Um, I would say I want to think really hard before I say this because I had a knee-jerk reaction, but I do think it is my answer. I would say openness to change at the highest level at our agency. I think that would be it. Um, our team, the boots on the ground, the frontline worker, they adapt to change very, very well. But leadership is very constrained with all sorts of things on their plate. Um, and so sometimes a new idea is hard to embrace just because it takes time to invest in and so forth. Um, and then also, like, what investment would it require in terms of people, resources, funding, et cetera? Um, I think that's really it. If there's someone to really embrace and champion something new and drive it forward, uh, usually those things can get across the finish line. But let's say that you all came back with something that is totally outside the box. Like you guys really should consider, I don't know, making board games and selling them into toy stores and stuff like that. Like that would be really hard for our leadership to wrap their arms around because it's not an entrepreneurial group. It's It is very much a process-oriented group. Uh, that wants to stay on mission. And our mission really is about the Denver community. So that example I gave you about like the counselors and whether or not we expand our clinical services outside of Denver, that's really a mission question. So there might be great revenue opportunities there. That might be a real simple thing to do. I would probably be one of the people in the room saying that's mission creep. Like it's not our job to serve people outside of Northern Colorado. That's somebody else's job. So, I mean, we could have a lemonade stand. That would bring in revenue, but it's not our mission. So, I'm I'm kind of a stickler about mission creep. I tend to be a little more entrepreneurial about ideas, but that would probably be one of the conversations that our leadership team would have.
Gotcha. Makes perfect sense. And that was really the last question. There's one on here. Is there anything you feel like we should know that we haven't asked at this point? Or
I just want you guys to be assured and encouraged that anything you give me is going to be helpful. I don't want anyone worried that, like, first of all, if anyone comes to a group of students to get their work done, uh, that's a different problem. Like, I want this to be a relationship building opportunity between Catholic Charities and Regis, where we learn a little bit about each other and you guys get an opportunity to understand a practical problem in the workplace and a little about the community too, because we serve the community, um, and ask questions in a real life workplace setting, which many of you are already engaged with, in the work that you do. But I'm not trying to offset a project on my desk to a group of students. Like, that's not what this is about. It's more like, let's come together and see, would this be something that's interesting to you guys? Because I'm not quite sure how I should be thinking about it. Can you give me some tools on how to think about it? So I don't want any of you caught up in, um, she's got to present something to her boss here, and this better look and feel like what she wants. And just, I want you guys to have fun and learn something along the way. And also let it be something that, tugs on your heart a little in a spiritual way, whatever that spirituality is. Like, I do think wanting to help people is a pretty agnostic language that most people, especially your generation, you guys are so into cause-based um, issues and work and stuff like that, far more than my generation ever was when we were going through our education. So I just want you all to get something out of it. And that's what success would look like for me. I'm not like watching the clock against a deadline, like I got to hurry and turn this big presentation in. So I don't want anyone to be stressed out about it, is my point.
we'll pass it on to the professor. I'm just kidding.
I have
I
told him that. I have told him that. Like, I know he wants you guys to, to be professional and all of that. And certainly if things go sideways, I'll offer that feedback. But no, I would say look at this as being in the sandbox and having a little fun. And whatever you provide me, I'm sure is going to be very helpful because it's going to be more than I've been able to put together on my own.
Perfect. Well, thanks for that. I think that's all the questions I have on this Word doc. I don't know if Stephen or Erica, if you have anything else you wanted to ask.
I think just for me, kind of hearing you kind of speak about that, at the end. I think right now, I think there's especially the first couple of weeks, we've taken a couple of weeks to kind of wrap our head around in like not the pressure, but like we have to please you and have to make sure that this is something that really makes an effect and things like that. And I think it's quite nice to just take a step back and just we should just be doing research and understand like where we can help.
Exactly.
And I
Yeah,
think
that is going to have the greatest effect because
yeah,
the more specific and proposal like it is, the more likely I am going to have people stop listening to me and
yeah,
in our leadership team because I want them to be part of the solution so that they embrace it. So I'd
mhm,
rather present to them, hey, you guys, here's what I've learned about social enterprise. And look at like all the areas where you kind of need to check a box as you start to think about this. Like we check most of those boxes. Should we start talking more? It's really
mhm.
just about that. But yeah, no, I want to alleviate any sort of save your stress for your own work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
just
I, I,
have
I
fun with this.
think a lot of the brainstorming at the beginning was like we were looking at like these individual problems after our first meeting with you, and people were coming up with things, and I'm sure these guys can probably agree that we sat there and kind of thought, well, you guys have professionals in your company, you're a
Exactly.
successful company, and we are not qualified to jump over
No.
your people and create something in that sense. We need to be highlighting areas where you guys can then work on. I
Yeah,
think that
and it would not be fair for me to put you guys in that position. Like that's ridiculous.
yeah,
Um, to expect
yeah.
you all to know how to solve those problems. So, no, I would see this as a big research endeavor, um, which is important. I mean, it's important in the workplace that you do. In fact, I would say so many things don't get executed effectively because teams don't, they aren't able to take the time they need on the front end to plan. So I would see the market analysis, research, all of that as something that happens even before you start planning.
Mhm, mhm. I guess my last point would be kind of an ask from you to kind of help
Uh-huh.
us as well. Like an expectation would be like if we're giving feedback and when we do keep you up to date on what we're doing, if we do sway away from what you want and say we go too specific, I think we'd all really appreciate if you can be stern and goes, guys, you're doing too much right now. Like you are
Oh,
diving
okay,
into a
sure.
single thing. So like if we are creating something and we're going to go work and we're like this week we want to work on this, and if you're like
Yeah.
I don't want you to work on that, then like you're not going to hurt anyone's feelings because by saying no, you guys are kind of going the wrong direction with
Okay.
this. I'd rather you go this direction because I know you said, but I do want this to be really useful for you. And if we're going to spend our time doing it, then it should be something that is a mutual endeavor kind of thing. So I'd
Totally.
appreciate, and especially I think us three will probably be the most communicating resources
Okay.
for you. So be stern. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings by, and I'm sure you
I'm
will be,
super direct. I'm
but
super direct, so
yeah,
not a problem.
I
Yeah.
think we'd all really appreciate that. And because I think with 15 personalities in our group, there will be ideas that come up, and you're going to be like, I don't want it to go that direction. And I think we'd
Yeah.
appreciate knowing that and being able to not pursue something which isn't wanted as well, which
Yeah.
is big. But no, I think that was really great. Thank you for your time and answering all these questions. That was fun.
Sure. Did you have
Yeah,
anything, Erica?
no, it actually just really helped me clarify because I kind of thought the two problems were both really high on your list, the social endeavors and then the home or moving into permanent housing. I thought those were pretty much equal. So it was nice knowing, no, I really want you to focus on really this one and maybe
Yeah.
tie into this one.
Yeah, if there's
Um,
information that that's more an
um,
opportunity for you guys. Like if you find we need to
right.
bifurcate our big group and kind of separate, like, you know, it's gravy
I
if there's information on
If
that.
there's, yeah, so like that was really helpful because I think the team was really trying, it seemed like more of the team wanted to focus on into the permanent shelter. More people were interested in help trying to find ways to help support that versus the other one, whereas that's more of your problem or what
Yeah,
you
and
want.
I would opine that that's
It's
like
not really
it was more specific, so people were probably drawn to the specifics of it as opposed to how
probably.
vague this other issue is. And if I got like a deck that helped me understand like who all in Denver is, like what social enterprise endeavors are there happening around Colorado and Denver, and I got all that information. That's more information than I have today. You know, and the what I wanted to do, I don't want to say I wanted to purposely confuse you all in that first meeting, but I the reality of the workplace is you live in the gray, like you live in the vague. And so we're all like people like what's familiar. They're drawn to what's familiar. And so we all want specifics and we want to know, okay, what do you want and when and by, but like if I could do all that, I'd have it done already. So I wanted to give really, really broad context around our agency and highlight a couple of problems and sort of see where you all land. But your teacher may have different expectations for you in terms of those two different problems that I shared. But I am not tethered to having anything really specific on the housing issue.
And Gina,
Awesome.
just to follow up on that, would you be open to our group? And we hadn't discussed this or anything yet, but if we wanted to break into groups and attack issues a little bit differently, are you open to all of that, or is this something we should run by you?
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. No, because I want to also be a resource for you guys in your learning. One thing that could be interesting, I don't know how whether your professor would agree or not, is like divide the group in half, let both groups go after the same thing and see where they both land, and then have the groups learn from each other, like what their thought process was, how they approached it. That could be interesting. But that's me sort of getting into space that is not, it's not my hula hoop. So that's his call to make. Um, but no, I don't have a problem if you guys want to conquer this in a way where some are doing one thing, some are doing another.
Perfect. Well, thank
And I
you.
want you guys to remember this, that like in the workplace, it kind of sucks to work with people of my generation because we like paper and we aren't good with technology and we like things the way we used to do it and all of that. But uh celebrate the benefits of working with people in my generation where like we don't really sweat the small stuff anymore. We want to be successful, but to me the things that matter are show up when you say you're going to show up, own your mistakes, and give it your best. And if you do those things, it's probably going to land in a place that's going to help me. So remember that when you get aggravated with the next 50, 60-year-old in the workplace you have to deal with, please. Because I know we're not fun. So,
Is that
Well,
all the
thank you.
questions? Yeah,
I think
all
so.
good.
well,
All
thanks,
right.
you guys. Have an awesome weekend.
Thank you. You too.
See ya. Bye bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Very much.
Bye. You guys
Okay.
still here for a minute?
Yeah. I
Do I
think that
stop
will,
recording before? Do I stop recording quick?
yeah, stop recording now. That's good.
Yay.
That wrap it up.